Do you suffer from debilitating migraines? You know, that throbbing pain in the front or side of your head that's so severe you're unable to work or do anything other than retreat into a dark and quiet room? Have you had them for years and just haven't found a solution? Call Dr. Elizabeth Ebersol and put an end to your debilitating migraines forever. Or go to her website at www.handmadehealth.com. That's www.handmadehealth.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Balls to the Wall, episode number 3. We're missing one is our cohort. Nick Harris is on assignment this week, so it's just Billy Martin Jr. and myself. How you doing, Billy?
You know, it's a nice warm day here in Texas, but we ready for the upper 90s. You should dial down a little bit.
Warm and humid was the forte last night at the football fields across the Metroplex last night. It was a scorcher for sure last night, man.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah.
Kind of cool to see high school football and stuff going on, though. People
yes, it is.
Actually at the games watching. It was neat.
Well, and it feels normal. You know, I mean, we've talked a little bit about COVID on the last few episodes we hear it. It just feels normal when you're outside and you're having people just enjoying some high school football on a Thursday, Friday night. You just kind of cross your fingers that, you know, there's no COVID outbreak after the fact, you know. But yeah, it does. It does got to feel normal. And I think yesterday was the first time it felt normal with the heat and humidity. They go with it too.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we appreciate you listening to us here again for the Balls on the Wall. Like we said, we'll be back next week, but we want to talk about pennant races, man. I know that's right up your alley, Billy Martin Jr., being a baseball guy that yourself that is. And, you know, it's been kind of little anticlimactic a little bit on that. Seems like a lot of the division, the division winners seem to be wrapped up in a lot of the, divisions so far. But I mean, we could start off with that NL West where, wow, the Dodgers and the Giants. I mean, it's reminiscent of 1947, 1953. I mean, it's two guys that know each other extremely well. And I mean, gosh, we talked about it a little off camera, Billy. Nobody predicted the Giants to be playing as well as they have all year long. I think they were in first place for 115 straight days. I mean, we never saw that coming from them. I mean, we got no Bruce Bochy. I mean, you only have Buster Posey and Crawford, pretty much the leftover guys from their World Series championship runs. Well, Brandon Belt, I should take that back. Brandon Belt was part of that. But I mean, they pitched really well, but they've kind of run up against it a little bit where they've run a little out of gas here the last week and a half or so, and they've got a couple of guys on the IL. Can they hold on with the 3-game series coming up this weekend?
You know, it's easy to say no right now because like you said, who predicted them to do what they did? And we are talking about one of the older, more established rivalries in baseball in the Giants and the Dodgers. But, you know, they've done a great job. Farhan, their general manager, has done a great job with the Solanos and all these guys that Gausman,
yeah,
who, what? This guy's one of the best pitchers in baseball all of a sudden. And it's really neat to see the job they've done because he took over a team that had a lot of older guys still locked in on salary.
Yes.
So you're looking at that team the last couple of years and you're seeing, wow, they've got this top prospect in Joey Bart, this catcher, and Buster Posey's getting old, and all of a sudden you look down at what Buster Posey's doing this year, and it's like, holy crap. I mean, where's this kid going to find a way to break in now? Because this team's really good. They're not a joke. They have they've gone 500 the last 10 games, and the Dodgers have, won 7 out of their last 10. So, it's now tied up, but it's great. It's great for the game. It's got to be great on the West Coast. We expected this out of the Padres and the Dodgers, not not the Giants and the Dodgers.
Well, and and looking it up, the Giants have won 7 out of the last 9 against the Dodgers here too. So it's now, albeit Dodgers didn't have Betts and they didn't have Seager when they played the last, those last 2 series. They're both back now. The Dodgers are about as 100% as they can be, minus Kershaw right now, who'll probably be back maybe in about 2 weeks or so. But the Giants, just their pitching staff's the one that's really hurt. They got Wood on the IL. They've got Johnny Cueto they put on the IL just a couple days ago. So, they're going to be pitching probably a bullpen pitch game, one of these 3 games this week. And lo and behold, you don't want to go to Colorado and have to play. And the Giants go to Colorado, following this series. So, you kind of got to make sure you kind of keep your head above water, I think, in the next week or so for them. If you go 3-3, that's not horrible, during that stretch playing those 2 teams. You just don't want to go 2-4 or 1-5 at this point, because then that's going to give the Dodgers, I think if the Dodgers get up 2 or 3 games here in the next, say, week or so, I think it's going to be hard for the Giants to kind of catch them at that point in time. And then unfortunately that, whoever doesn't win this division's got to play a 1-card playoff game, probably against the Reds, at this point, or it could be the Padres if they can get their act together. And then they turn around and have to play this. If they win that wild card, they'll have to play this division winner. So, it doesn't seem fair. I wish they would maybe find a way of reseeding this a little bit, because it would stink if you have the 2 best teams in one division and have to play each other in a divisional playoff round, instead of, I don't get that, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, it's a really crucial week here for the Giants. And I think the Rockies got the best home record in baseball. That's amazing to me. I think they've only won 18 games on the road all year. But so I don't think anybody wants to go up to that Rock and have to play. And you know what it does to the pitching staff when you go up to Colorado for a 3-game set. It sets you back for the upcoming series a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And that atmosphere, it changes the dynamics of really all your off-speed stuff. And it's mentally as hard on these arms, because they know they're not going to have the same bite to the curveball. They know they're not going to have the same, reaction to their changeup, and that makes it harder for them. And I don't know, but it's also part of the game that I love, because there is so much going on up here. Those are the analytics we can't ever figure out, right? The inches between your ears. And that's what this stuff's all about. That's what it's going to come down to. Who can be the sharpest down the stretch.
So you mean you tell me that guy from Cambridge that rides his bicycle to school every day can't figure that out? Yeah.
No. And if anybody can, they'll be the best general manager, best scouting director, best agent, best in history. Because if you could figure that out, you look at the guys that are drafted, and only less than 9% have a 4-year career of drafted players. And everyone that's drafted has the abilities. You're going to say, you look at a little guy like Jose Altuve, who's 5'6.5" with big spikes on. And, all these guys have the ability, but they got to believe it. They've got to believe in themselves. They've got to fight through the negatives. And man, I can't wait till, teams still to this day do psychological evaluations of the guys they're going to draft. I don't think anybody's still figured out this means the guy's going to be successful. I think they just are able to get rid of some red flags. This personality is he's more inclined to be a bullshitter, or he's more inclined to not work. But who could stay positive? Who can really believe in themselves when they're getting kicked in the crotch at AA? and they've got a all-star in front of them at AAA and in the big leagues. You know, are they going to sit there and watch the box scores every day going, oh crap, man, I'm never getting called up? They're going to keep fighting a good fight.
What we call them, bonus babies. I mean, you know, that's it's real. That's not just a statement. That is extremely real. When a club invests millions into a prospect, you better believe he's gonna play. You know, he can weather a 1 for 27. The guy that's, you know, made only $100,000 bonus, he can't weather 1 for 27s. They're looking up. They may go independent league to try to find somebody to replace that. So yeah, there's an awful lot of pressure. And then Billy, you would probably be even more keen to this. Players plateau, and we don't realize that. Sometimes their player at 21, that's as best as he's ever going to be. He's not going to get much better at 22 or 23. He may have maximized his ability. So then it's about of, well, is this guy we really want to keep investing time with, or we want to take a shot at the 18-year-old when we think we've got a 4 or 5 year window? I mean, that's,
but you know what? But even that, I think is here. I think that plateau, because think about it, athletically, 28, 27 is where you should be peaking as an athlete, unless we're talking about the steroid days, and then it was 34. But
creams.
Yeah, you know, seriously, there's a guy getting called up right now for the Astro named Jose Siri. Okay, neat story. This guy was put on the roster, I think, for the Reds, but he's bounced around a bunch. He was literally put on a roster. He was signed when he was 17 out of the Dominican Republic. We're assuming that's what his age really is. And then, he literally got put on their 40-man roster when he was like 21, 22, because they didn't want to lose him to the Rule 5 draft.
Absolutely.
Well, now he's bounced around. He's never really gotten an opportunity, and now he's 25 or 6. But it was funny, after he went on that roster, all of his numbers started going down, right? And, you know, probably had to be something up here that happened, because you get put on the roster, the salary goes up, you start hearing all this big league talk.
Right.
You look around, you're still in the minor leagues, and it can beat you down a little bit. I can't tell you how many guys consider quitting when they get to the upper levels and they're not in the big leagues, because they're watching on Sports Center all these other guys live this life, make this great money, and they're still eating peanut butter sandwiches,
right,
driving around in buses, and right?
9-hour bus rides after a 1 for 12 series. What do you do mentally? You think about it. It drills
your body's beat up, right?
Yeah.
And you're stuck here in a chair, you know, for 8 hours with guys next to you. It's, you know, it's a tougher life than people really realize.
And then people don't also realize we're still dealing with life on life's terms. You know, they got girlfriends, they got wives, they got kids, whatever may be the case. You all know what comes with that, just day to day dealing with life. So yes, I think it's so mental for those guys to be able to block all that out. Then you're talking about Billy, maybe 3 pitches to hit in a game, good pitches to hit, so you can't miss those. So I mean, it's so hard to lock in that tunnel vision and all that, and the shutout. That's what separates the bigs from the guys down low. Yeah, sure, it's ability. I do get that. But it's just being able to put that mental capacity out there and block out all those distractions and go out there and perform. It's amazing what those guys do. And the great ones get 3 hits out of 10.
Well, no kidding. That's how you get to the Hall of Fame, right? By almost getting 4 hits out of 10. You know, it's like, whoa. Think about this. You talked about that focus, and that they've done video studies on players' eyes. Okay. And it's funny, you start to get in a slump at the plate, and guys start messing with their swing, and I I need to get my arm up. I need to do this. I need to change my launch angle. Sometimes they just need to refocus and trust their eye. They did video studies. The average little leaguer takes his eye off the baseball 5 feet from the pitcher's hand.
Wow. Wow.
Now they still run into a lot of those balls, right? Because your brain's a computer. It saw the trajectory of the baseball. It tracks where it was going. So even though they're not looking, they still run into a lot of those. The average major leaguer who is trying harder than anybody to focus on that baseball all the way to his bat still takes her eye off the ball 5 feet from contact.
Wow. Wow.
Think about that. I mean,
It's unreal.
you know, but nobody really wants to talk about it because think how stupid it sounds, Kenny.
Yeah.
Watch the ball, little buddy. You sound like the dad that's talking to the 6-year-old kid.
Been taught that since day one. Follow the ball all the way to the bat. You know, that's you can't hit what you can't see. I mean,
Right. But who's going to tell that to Albert Pujols when he goes into a slump? Right.
right.
You know, it's kind of funny, but it's a real thing. And, you know, even when I say it to clients, I get the eye roll and, okay, thanks, Billy. Yeah, you worry about my contract. I'll worry about baseball.
Well, hey, I was going to maybe move on over here to the NL East. I mean, boy, in the last 3 weeks, have we just seen a major change from the Mets were the cream of the All-Star break. All we're talking is Mets, and DeGrom. DeGrom has been hurt. The Mets have not hit a lick all year, but then they really tanked in that stretch where they played the Dodgers and the Giants. I think they lost 12 out of 14 of those games. I mean, you got Baez and you got Frisco Lindor, chopping off the Mets fans in New York City. Your dad knows that's a no-no, in New York City. I mean, can you just talk about? I can't believe the free-for-all that they had, but for the Braves, they were left for dead, back in June, and they lose their best player back in June. And I mean, what they have done over there, I mean, just to be above 500 and be leading the division right now, I think that's a phenomenal job that they've done there in Atlanta down there.
No doubt. And, and those guys work their tail off. That general manager is like a junkyard dog. If you have a free agent that he wants, he will literally call or text you 6-7 times a day.
Wow.
And I'm not kidding. And it's
not
impressive.
Not to interrupt you, but what he had to do from that John Hart situation that he had to take over, man, that's amazing what he has done. Because remember, they took those guys away from them and took draft picks away from the Braves because of what they did with the internationals, the international, I guess it was bonuses or illegal touch or whatever it may have been the case, but that's unbelievable. So he walked in where he had his hands behind his back, and he still has a promising minor league team, and they're still all very young besides Freeman.
Yeah, and they've just been uber aggressive, going out, getting guys, making moves. Cool little backstory, I was involved with an independent league team a couple of years ago, the Texas Air Hogs, who COVID has destroyed. But
I know, so mad about that.
Well, we had a left-handed pitcher on our team named Tyler Matzik, who was a first-round pick from the Rockies a few years before, got to the big leagues, and got the yips, had some issues, and he was so honest with me when I called to sign him when he'd been released. He said, Billy, I'd love to sign with you guys, but you got to give me your word you're going to stick by me because I'm a mess right now. I have no idea where my fastball is going. I can paint with my slider, but I have no idea where my fastball is going, and I can't figure this out in a bullpen. I've got to figure it out in games, right? So we sign him. He's up and down. I made this promise to him, thinking I was going to be managing the team the next year. We all of a sudden cut a deal with China, who comes in to behalf our team to get their national team better. So John McLaren becomes our manager.
Mhm.
He calls me about a month into the season, Billy. Now I'm just doing player personnel stuff, right? I'm the acting GM.
Right.
And he's like, Billy, you got to get me a different option. Matzik's killing us right now. I'm like, John, I tell him the story. I gave you my word. Well, John McLaren's such a stand-up man. He said, well, then my God, we're gonna back your word.
Nice.
But we're gonna move into the bullpen, okay? And lessen his role. Well, he started getting better. Got signed by the Diamondbacks. But they let him go in spring training. He came back and signed with me. His agent called me and said, Billy, he'll only play for you. I laughed. I said, you just destroyed your leverage with me. And he laughed. He said, I know. He came back, and our pitching coach starts working with him on just changing his arm slot a little bit. He noticed that his slot had dropped a little bit, right? Kevin Joseph was the pitching coach, and he's like, you were up here when you were doing really well when you got to the big leagues. Your slots dropped a little, and you're going more east-west as opposed to north-south. And next thing you know, Tyler goes nuts. And I mean, literally out of the bullpen as our closer, strikes out 13 in a row. Think about that. That's coming in 3 or 4 different outings.
Yeah.
And so, I start calling clubs. Well, I called Dana Brown with the Braves, who's an old friend, and he's not an independent league guy. He's not their, he's their, vice president, assistant general manager, scouting director. He's got one of those super jobs where he's very involved with everything.
Right.
And I'm talking about it, and I can tell he's rolling his eyes as he's listening to me. And I'm like, Dana, have I ever called you about an independent league baseball player before? He goes, no, you haven't. He goes, you know what? Because you said that, you're right. He goes, I'll have some guys out to look at him tomorrow.
Nice.
3 or 4 days later, yeah. And to our manager's credit, he put our closer and our other 2 best arms out of the bullpen in a game we were losing 6-0, just to showcase him because the scouts were there, right?
Right.
The Braves signed him, and Tyler's been outstanding for them these last 2 years. And it's just, my long-winded story just shows how the Braves have exhausted every effort through all this stuff. And, you touched on all that international signing stuff and the penalties they got, and some great men lost their jobs.
Yes.
Some men that are good friends of mine lost their jobs. And, people vilify the Houston Astros for banging trash can lids and cheating the way they did. Well, like my father said many years ago, cheating is as much a part of baseball as hot dogs and Cracker Jacks. Okay?
Yes, it is.
Because you're always trying to get better. You're always trying to find a way. And what those guys did in Atlanta, so what? They paid a little more money to some kid who lived in a hut and gave him a chance. I mean, yeah, what they did was wrong. Was it really, though? And in God's eyes, was it wrong? In the real world, was it really a terrible thing they did? No. They're just trying to find an advantage, like everybody is in life. But it's amazing, because to be whacked like they got and then to turn around and be this good.
Yeah.
I mean, what if it's the Braves and the Astros in the World Series? Right?
Little October baseball with the 2 of them. That would be unreal. Now,
people will say, who's playing shortstop? Derek Cheater?
Yeah, I mean, and that's not far-fetched. I mean, it's really not. I mean,
No.
Obviously you're going to have to probably I still think you have to run through the Dodgers, and that starting pitching is just unbelievable especially when you add a Mad Max, that's
Yeah.
maybe your third. He can maybe be your third if they're going to stick with loyalty. I mean, they got Rios, they got Bueller, who I think might be the best pitcher in baseball, not named DeGrom. I mean, he pitches every 5 days where DeGrom does not. So I think you need to put that into the equation, because you can't be great if you're only pitching maybe 40% of your games every year. And it seems like DeGrom's always got something nagging at him, all the time. But I mean, goodness, you have to beat those 4 guys at least 3 times in a 5-game set and 4 times, in a 7-game series. And that's going to be hard to do. I mean, I really think it's going to be really hard to do. Now, you can get to their bullpen, they're beatable. It's getting, if you can get to the Dodgers bullpen, they are a beatable team at that point in time. But man, trying to get to that bullpen.
Even that, though. Yeah, but even their bullpen, they got
live arms.
They've got 3 or 4 former closers.
Yeah.
On their bullpen, the guys that were closing out games within the last 2 years. I mean, what do they do at the deadline? They lose one of the best pitchers in baseball, Trevor Bauer. So they go out and get Max Scherzer, who I'm not sure. And I agree with what you said about Bueller. Maybe, obviously going forward, I would pick him over anybody in baseball, I think, to lead my staff. If I just have one game, if I have one game right now, right? One game, one inning, I think I want Mad Max on the hill.
I told them the one game guys for me right now are Mad Max for sure. And the underrated guy that I don't get enough prob, that's McCullers. I think if you've watched him in the playoffs the last 3 or 4 years, dude, he's been really, really good nails in the playoffs. But yeah, Mad Max is a guy. I watched him pitch the other night. He didn't have control of his fastball, but he still goes out and pitches 7 innings, gives up 1 run, strikes out 11, and he had 0 fastball command. I'm thinking, how many guys in the major leagues can do that now?
Right. And there's that mental part we're talking about right there, because a guy like Mad Max says, I don't care. I'm going to find a way to beat you. I don't have my fastball tonight. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And
we're going to work both sides of the plate. We're going to work high in the zone, low in the zone, and we're going to keep you off balance. If it's not 96,
I mean,
it's 93, but you don't know where it's coming. It's, but
well, the guy's got 2 different colored eyes.
Yeah, no kid, he does.
So he's a little crazy in there, right?
Yes. Mad Max kind of reminds me of the Justin Verlander in a way, just a gutsy guy, it doesn't seem like he ever gets overwhelmed with the moment, Yeah, they get beat from time to time, but those are the kind of guys that are just cool, calm, and collected. They may even give you a smirk when they're not on their game during a game, and that sets them right back into being locked in. Those kind of guys. They get leashes too, though, but they earn their leash. If they're struggling, they earn it because they know that then they can come out of those battles, up top. I like to talk a little bit about the Central. The only reason I wanted to bring this up is because I think Milwaukee. I mean, who thought the Brewers would have 82 wins at this point in the season right now? I mean,
no, come on. We all think it was going to be Cardinals.
Yeah.
Cardinals with maybe the Brewers nipping at their heels.
We thought maybe the Cubs with them, I know that they made that run early in the year. That was kind of fool's gold right before the All-Star break. But yeah, we knew Milwaukee had a great bullpen, obviously. We knew that we were thinking Christian Yelich would bounce back this year and have hit, maybe back to his MVP type career. He's struggled, but he's played a little bit better lately. But gosh, the Brewers are just sitting there quietly winning 2 out of 3. I mean, they won 3 out of 4 against the Giants this past week. I mean, out at San Francisco. I mean, Craig Counsell's done an outstanding job with that club ever since he's taken over there.
He really has. And think about, you talk about Christian Yelich hasn't been anywhere near what we expect out of former MVP Christian Yelich. And I remember thinking how crazy the Marlins were for trading him when they're. I don't care that they're rebuilding. He was 26 at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the same age as some of these prospects you're bringing up. Why are you trading this guy? And he's so good. I think it's even been hard for some of those guys, like Brinson, who's just now starting to put it together in Miami. I think because he was traded for Christian Yelich, I think that made it harder on him.
Yep.
But
Sure
he started to find his stroke. But
Ranger farmhand.
Three-hole hitter, and look what they got, a 10-game lead.
Yeah. I mean, and if anything, it's that kind of the team that you might not want to play in that 5-game series because they're going to shorten up the game to 4 to 5 innings, and they're going to roll out bullpen arm after bullpen arm after bullpen arm. So I think those are the sneaky teams. They kind of the Brewers remind me of what the Rays are. The Rays are, the great bullpen where they say, man, we can just get 4 innings out of our starters, man. We got an excellent shot at winning. We scratch a couple runs here and there. We're going to be good because, man, the ERAs of those bullpens for both of those two rosters is extraordinary. And they've got big arms and live arms in both of them. So, I know that you probably, this in playoff baseball, it's about missing bats.